They were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him and his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called himself the greatest in anything but that man and his camp.
They point to other guys, as you know, and say, oh, wait. Kobe and Michael would say, wait a minute, he didn't win as many championships with Jerry West. Hold on, you better mention Kareem. They would all mention Bill Russell. So the notion that anyone is saying, I'm the greatest, there's one guy in the history of sports I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who gets to say, I'm the greatest. Ali invented the conversation. He was, and to me still is, the greatest, because he didn't just change his sport. He didn't just change sports. He changed the world.
Changed society.
He changed the nation's position.
The GOAT debate in the NBA has always been a battlefield. Generations have argued, fans have fought, and analysts have filled entire shows dissecting every stat, every championship, every intangible. But this time, it wasn't just another debate over numbers or accolades. It was personal, brutally personal. In one electrifying panel, Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon, and Charles Tansey sat together and did what few in sports media dare to do: strip down the myth surrounding LeBron James' claim to the throne. What unfolded wasn't a debate, it was an autopsy. Piece by piece, they dissected LeBron's self-proclaimed title as the greatest of all time. 4 years, LeBron's 2016 finals moment, when he uttered the words, "That right there made me the greatest player of all time," has echoed across highlight reels and social media feeds. To his fans, it was the MIC drop moment, the final word in the GOAT debate. But to this panel, it was something entirely different, a declaration made too soon, and without the universal validation that true greatness demands. Stephen A. Smith led with his trademark fire, reminding the world that greatness cannot be self-proclaimed. It's not a trophy you hand yourself. It's something earned through legacy and solidified through respect. He pointed out that Jordan never had to say he was the greatest. The world said it for him. Opponents said it. Legends said it. History said it. And that, Smith argued, is what separates the myth from the man. Then came Charles Tansey, cutting even deeper. He went straight for the foundation of LeBron's legacy, his championships. Yes, 4 titles, 10 finals appearances. But Tansey asked the question that made the studio fall silent. Did LeBron win the hard way? His answer, and the uncomfortable truth, was no. Tansey laid it bare. LeBron's path to glory was engineered, a calculated journey crafted through team-ups and roster manipulation. From forming a super team in Miami, to reuniting with Kyrie and Kevin Love in Cleveland, to pairing with Anthony Davis in Los Angeles. Each chapter, though successful, came with the shadow of orchestration. If Michael Jordan played by the same rules, Tansey said, would he have 10 rings? That question wasn't mockery, it was perspective. Because Jordan didn't chase comfort. He stayed in Chicago, took his hits, endured his failures, and built a dynasty from within. He didn't need to assemble power around him. He was the power. His greatness wasn't curated. It was earned the hard way, through losses, sweat, and absolute domination. Then Michael Wilbon brought the conversation home. Calm, measured, but with the authority of someone who lived through both eras. Wilbon reminded everyone that Jordan's era was built on resistance, not recruitment. There were no super teams, no player empowerment moves, no social media-driven narratives. Jordan played in a league of giants, Bade, Magic, Ewing, Barkley, Olajuwon, and he conquered them all without ever leaving his post. Wilbon called it the purity of competition. He said Jordan didn't just win. He owned every moment he stepped onto the court. There was never confusion about who the alpha was. His presence silenced arenas. His dominance inspired faith. When the game was on the line, there was no debate. It was Jordan's time, every time. And that's where the panel found its unshakable conclusion. LeBron James may be one of the most gifted athletes in sports history, but his greatness feels different. Controlled, managed, negotiated. It's the kind of greatness that's measured in metrics, not myth. When you talk about Jordan, you talk about an aura. When you talk about LeBron, you talk about analytics. And that, they said, is the gap that will never close. Stephen A. summed it up perfectly. Jordan's greatness was organic. LeBron's was engineered. It's not an insult, it's an observation. And when both legacies sit side by side, one feels timeless, while the other still feels like it's being debated. Because in the end, true greatness doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't announce itself. It's recognized by peers, by fans, by the game itself. Michael Jordan never needed to say he was the greatest. The world said it for him. LeBron James has achieved immortality in his own right. 4 championships, all-time scoring leader, a symbol of consistency and evolution. But the question remains, is he the GOAT, or just the longest-lasting star of his generation?
Mistakenly exposed himself and the fact that LeBron really shouldn't be in the top 3, and LeBron James stacked teams to get to where he is. So as he was talking about it, Stephen A. Smith then says he's wrong about not having LeBron in his top 3, but he's right by saying had Michael Jordan stacked teams to win championships, he would have had like 10 championships. So then the question then becomes, so if LeBron never stacked teams, how many championships?
Stephen A. Smith didn't just step into the conversation. He blew the doors off it. The studio fell quiet. The lights seemed a little sharper. And for a moment, it felt like he wasn't talking to anyone. He was talking at everyone. Straight into the camera. Straight into the hearts of LeBron's most loyal fans. And then, with that signature fire in his voice, he said what few have the guts to admit. Greatness cannot be self-proclaimed. You don't hand yourself the crown. You don't wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and decide the world owes you its reverence. You let the game and history do that for you. Because in the realm of legends, humility isn't weakness. It's validation earned through time, dominance, and legacy. Stephen A. reminded everyone that Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, never once called himself the GOAT. He didn't need to. The world did it for him. 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 2 three-peats, 10 scoring titles, an iron will that crushed dynasties and rewrote what greatness even meant. Jordan didn't have to speak his legacy into existence. He became it. One jump shot, one finals moment, one era-defining performance at a time, and he wasn't alone. Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, the man who worshipped the grind, who lived and breathed the art of obsession, never declared himself the greatest either. He chased Jordan. He respected Jordan. And he built a legacy not on words, but on scars, on wake, fire, and championships that demanded respect, not requested it. Even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the cerebral assassin of the post, with 6 MVPs, more than anyone in history, never went around demanding that the world acknowledge him as the pinnacle. He didn't have to. His resume spoke in the only language legends understand: consistency, dominance, and class. And today, even Steph Curry, the man who changed the geometry of the game itself, who stretched the floor beyond imagination and redefined shooting forever, doesn't call himself the best. He doesn't need to. Because when you're great, the world tells your story for you. As Stephen A. put it so sharply, legends don't beg for validation. They command it. And yet, here was LeBron James, one of the most gifted, most complete players ever to touch a basketball, looking straight into a camera after the 2016 finals and saying, "That right there made me the greatest player of all time." To Stephen A., that was blasphemy, that wasn't confidence, that was heresy, because in that single moment, LeBron didn't just break a rule, he shattered an unwritten code that has defined greatness for generations. He stepped over a line that no amount of points, triple-doubles, philanthropy, or Hollywood productions could ever erase, because true greatness isn't declared, it's discovered. It's not what you say about yourself. It's what the world can't stop saying about you. Stephen A. took it further, much further. He explained that when you crown yourself, you don't just put a target on your back. You invite the storm. You open the door for every critic, every analyst, every rival, every hater, to pick apart every flaw in your story. You hand them the weapon, and they don't hesitate to use it suddenly. Those finals losses start to echo louder. The collapse in 2011 against the Dallas Mavericks, it becomes heavier. The decision to team up in Miami rather than climb the mountain alone in Cleveland, it becomes a symbol of calculation, not conquest. Stephen A. argued that LeBron didn't need to say those words. His career was already historic. His longevity, his consistency, his all-around brilliance, all of that spoke for itself. But by saying it out loud, by crowning himself the GOAT, he didn't add to his legacy. He put it on trial.
Trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him and his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called himself the greatest in anything but that man.
When Michael Wilbon finished, you could feel the air thicken in that studio. Nobody dared to interrupt him, not because of fear, but because of reverence. What he had just laid out wasn't an argument. It was a sermon, a history lesson, a reminder of how greatness has always been earned, not announced. Wilbon leaned back, took a breath, and expanded on the heart of his message. He said that greatness isn't just about skill, it's about presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need to shout to be felt. When Jordan walked into a room, you didn't need a stat sheet to know who he was. When Kobe laced up his sneakers, the building felt different. They didn't perform for approval. They embodied excellence. He told a story, one that only someone who'd lived inside NBA locker rooms for 40 years could tell. He remembered Jordan after one of those finals wins in the 90s, champagne dripping down his face, and Wilbon asked him quietly, "Do you ever think you're the best to ever do it?" Jordan smiled, that subtle, knowing smile, and said, "I just think I did my job better than anyone else could." That was it. No chest pounding, no self-anointment, just truth, spoken in the language of results. Then Wilbon pivoted to Kobe. He described how Kobe, near the end of his career, once told him, "You don't call yourself the greatest. You just work so hard they have no choice but to call you that." That's the mentality that defined an entire generation of legends, a generation that understood that greatness was sacred. You didn't grab it. You earned the right for others to hand it to you. That's why Wilbon's comparison to Muhammad Ali hit so hard. Ali did say, "I am the greatest." But as Wilbon explained, that statement wasn't just about boxing. It was a weapon against oppression. It was courage wearing gloves. Ali wasn't building his own brand. He was defying a system that tried to silence him. His greatness was cultural. It was historical. It was spiritual. When Ali said those words, he wasn't inflating his ego. He was expanding the boundaries of what a black man could declare in public in 1964. So when LeBron said he was the GOAT, Wilbon argued, it didn't carry that same revolutionary energy. It wasn't defiance against injustice.